shit scary? I just saw the Stay Puffed Marshmallow woman. It was pretty cool.
I mean, I can check in a bit.
There's the real estate.
Yeah, I gotta play Cyberpunk game. I'll try to hold on to you.
That's my rule.
Oh, where's the Bunko house?
Far corner.
Cool. Did you get a picture?
I won myself a t-shirt. Yeah, that's what I was trying to
That should make me excited. What? Hold up.
I feel like I'm in traffic right now.
Heads up. You gotta be heads up.
For no reason.
Attention Funko travelers. All exclusives have now departed.
We got new inventory in
Just
today.
kidding. There's plenty of fun for
Have a
everyone.
reservation. Okay, so in order to buy the content and reservation, we got these slots to buy. Where you want to try that.
Almost. Take 80 film.
Honestly, like personal wise, the ones that I want to keep are yours at number 5. I don't really care about that. Yeah. I really like that board. I want to keep 6. Oh, you do? Okay. And I want to get the Naruto department. I'm going to old school. Honestly, look at the two that really want to keep for myself. I'm going to get the rest really want to keep. I got awesome.
That's the line.
This is incredibly long, right?
All over your face.
Oh, see, I wouldn't touch it.
Starting in about 1 minute if you want to come on down. There's too many freebies, maybe some cosplayers and some other fun stuff going on.
I can help with this. Hi, how are you guys?
It's on Peacock.
It was the killer clown. The man in the yellow hat, and his kid was dressed as Curious George. My God, I love that clown costume.
See the knot. I see knot in it. What?
Beetlejuice.
I'm upset. Photo ops.
Maxine!
Some smooth people. Some netherworld. I do a lot of.
I'm just gonna say put the bottle in my lips and I will do it myself.
First of all, how does it associate with this, and then you figure out what you want to do. I don't know how much we specify this for. Because I probably would have been in the front row, except I was asking questions for you. Otherwise, I would have been. Yeah, it seemed like they kind of were. I mean, I think some people are still doing it. It's smart.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Oh, he's got a disenchantment looking foot. That's awesome with Lucy on the back. He's a sweet.
Very flirtatious.
Goodness, wearing a mask too. He's smart. He's wearing a mask too. That's smart.
Wow. You know when you get applause for saying wow. We're taking a few minutes just to get the technical stuff set up. Avert your eyes. And then we'll get going.
I love your jacket, by the way.
Yes, it's got Lucy on the back. It's so great. I want one.
This enchantment lives on in promotional jacket form.
Is that show still on?
No, it just ended.
So, excuse me, are you supposed to be Futurama?
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought. I'm Jimbo Jones. You can't see the cord.
That's funny.
I mean, I didn't color my hair or anything like you did. But no, I noticed it immediately when you came in. I was like, and you sat right here. I'm like, that must be you trying to be Fry or something.
Fry's my favorite goofball.
He's working on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matt Groening. And most of you can't see us now. We're sitting down. Sorry about that.
Every once in a while we'll stand.
Yeah, we'll stand up. If we get carried away, we'll stand up. This is going to be a very casual conversation. We haven't done much preparation for this, but we're going to have fun. Okay?
Yeah.
And then after we've spoken, if we have time, we'll take a few questions.
Yeah.
Good questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we start this? Patrick, this is
Can you see this nice? Should we move this over?
Yeah, I can. Okay, so I can see. Yes. 30th anniversary. Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever heard of a cartoon that's lasted.
Well, what's your anniversary with Life and Hell?
I think. Oh, Life in Hell. Life in Hell lasted 32 years.
Wow. And the Simpsons?
From 1980 to 2012. I think.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah. Simpsons started in 1989. Well, started in 1987, the Tracy Ullman Show, and we're still making them.
Isn't it crazy? Cartoonists live a long time, knock on wood. But,
I'm convinced that the reason is upper arm.
And I think it's because you get up and you have something to do, and you're looking forward to it.
Wow.
No?
Maybe. You take the dead out of deadline.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I did a monthly comic for Parents Magazine for 10 years before I did Mutts. It was called Bad Baby. And I realized when I was starting Mutts that 10 years of a monthly comic was 3 months worth of a daily comic, and it scared the hell out of me. But after those 10 years I was done, I didn't have any more baby jokes.
What have those been reprinted?
A long time ago there was a short book, a little small book of Bad Baby.
And now Mutts is in how many newspapers?
Oh, it drops every day. But you can
but
see
not
it
because
online.
of the strip, it's because newspapers.
Because newspapers are kind
Yeah. But what I read was over 700 papers.
Yeah, I think I'm still close to 700.
Something like that, in 20 countries is what I read. Wow. So there's not much. So who translates the strip?
Well, I'm really popular in Finland, so I think that guy's really funny. I guess each country does it themselves.
Wow.
In Germany, instead of purring, Mooch schnurs.
For the Simpsons, it's all over the world as well. And at first, when it was first starting to be dubbed into different languages, they sent us audition tapes of actors, for languages I did not understand. So.
Do they try to copy the voices as close as they can?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. No, generally they're pretty good. They get the spirit of it. I remember one time though I was visiting Germany to promote the Simpsons movie, and I turned on my hotel TV and I saw the Simpsons were on in German, and I'd never watched the German Simpsons before, and I went, oh my gosh. They sound like Nazis. They were really harsh. And then that night, these German journalists took me out to dinner, and they said, "I'm not going to do the accent, but imagine an insulting German accent." And they said, "Did you see The Simpsons? Don't they sound like Nazis?" You want to go to the next?
Oh yeah, sure. Oh, so I'm also here to promote the latest book called The Guard Dog Story. We'll talk about that later. I have some slides on that later. And this was the first strip many years ago.
And hey, you know what? So, do we want to talk about? We met at Comic-Con in San Diego. I don't know what year it was, but it was via Jay Kennedy. We'll talk about him later too. But I didn't even know you were a cartoonist. You had edited a Crazy Cat book that was just absolutely fantastic, and I thought you were amazing because of that. And then to find out you're a cartoonist, and not only are you a cartoonist, you're a great cartoonist, and not only are you a great cartoonist, you're one of the all-time greats, and one of my favorites. And it's so
That means so much to me. Thank
well,
you.
and I see a link between your work and George Harriman's with Crazy Cat.
And actually, we'll just go through the slides. I showed things that...
let's talk about that first.
Okay, we'll get to Crazy Cat. I just thought it'd be fun to talk about what made us want to become cartoonists. I'm going to guess you wanted to be a cartoonist since you were a little kid. Is that true?
Well, yes. And the reason I wanted to become a cartoonist in part was because my father, Homer Groening, was a cartoonist in the 1950s. Did you know that?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I don't know what
he
kind
did.
of
He
strip
did
was
the
it?
he did kind of single panel gag cartoons in magazines in the backs of magazines, and very similar in spirit to Virgil Parch.
Oh my God!
So guys falling across the desert.
And cocktails, a lot of cocktails.
And he did his own self-published greeting cards, and one of them, I don't remember what the gag was, but it had when you opened up the card, it had a little lifesaver candy in it, but of course you couldn't use a real lifesaver because it would crumble. So we had fake lifesaver. We had boxes and boxes.
Was that the Halloween?
And so he loved cartoons, and I grew up in a house full of cartoon anthologies, New Yorker anthologies, and Punch magazine. And my father was also in advertising, so we got every general interest magazine in the country, and my job was to stack them up in neat piles in the basement, and that's where I hung out and I looked at cartoons.
I think we were both very lucky. My parents met at Cooper Union Art School in this city, and neither one of them ended up doing art as a living, but art was encouraged in the house. And actually, this is a photograph of my mom's copy of Pogo, which it's like my earliest memory, like 2-3 years old, looking through that and just being amazed how alive those characters looked on the page.
I love Pogo. I still love it. I'm glad that they're reprinting the old comic strips in chronological order. My first Pogo book was 10 Ever Loving Blue-Eyed Years of Pogo. That was an amazing book. And in that book, in the introduction, Walt Kelly said, a cartoonist is someone who can't draw that well or write that well. But, and I know it's completely wrong, specifically in his case, because not only could he write and draw, but also, I mean, his lettering in particular was unbelievable. One of the great letterers in the history.
And lettering's, I don't know if you'll agree with this, but lettering is the absolute worst thing to do for me. I hate lettering. So I look at Walt Kelly's lettering, and it's just amazing. And you know, Charles Schulz said the same thing, that art, cartooning is for people who can't write or draw very well.
And Charles Schulz, who was also a hero for both of us, loved your stuff.
Yeah, I would definitely do a few more stuff. Before we get to, so another book my mom had was Jules Pfeiffer, which was another major influence for me.
So Jules Pfeiffer, still alive. He's 112 years old or something. Anyway, he's very old, but he's still around and he's still doing stuff. And you had dinner with him recently, right?
Yeah, we went up to upstate New York and visited him at his home. He's working on a book right now that Charlie Kochman over here from Abrams is doing. It 308 pages, and literally he's 95 years old. And it's literally his best work. It's just beautiful.
And I discovered, again, my dad had his books, and he was a cartoonist in the Village Voice. And one of the high points of my life was getting my Life and Hell comic strip into the Village Voice, into the paper that published Jules Pfeiffer.
Wow.
Yeah. And Stan Mack and Linda Barry as well. So there you go. Pfeiffer was great, and Pfeiffer, I got to serve on a panel discussion with him once at a Comic-Con in San Diego, and one of the things I loved about Jules Pfeiffer was he doesn't suffer fools gladly, and he's kind of grumpy, and he says exactly what's on his mind.
Yes.
He said one thing that really stuck with me. He said every improvement in technology brings a decline in quality, which I thought that's always stuck in my mind.
Absolutely true. As a Luddite, I can say that's
and then on the same panel with Jules Pfeiffer was Kevin Fagan, who does the comic strip Drabble. And the question came from the audience: what are your other favorite comic strips? And Jules Pfeiffer said what he said. I said what I said, and Kevin Fagan said, I just like everything. And Jules Pfeiffer said, what the hell is wrong with you?
So this, again, is my mom's copy of 666 that I used to look at as a kid, and I got Jules to sign it to her, which really made her day. And then there's Charles Schulz. I mean, that's the real reason I became a cartoonist. And this particular strip, he surprised me one day. I was visiting him at his coffee shop at his ice skating rink. Do you have an ice skating rink yet? What Sparky would always say to me, maybe, would be, do you know anyone else who has two Zambonis? But one day I was waiting for him at his coffee shop, and I could see he had something behind his back, and he had a really funny smile on his face, and he said, Patrick, I have something that's for you that's gonna knock your socks off. And it was this drawing of the Peanuts gang at a museum and Rerun looking at a picture of Earl. in the museum, which it didn't. My socks went flying. And I keep this right near my drawing table and look at it every day and just amazed that I got to become friends with my hero. Which was really
I have to say Peanuts was a huge comic strip for me, and one in particular stuck in my mind since I was a kid and I first saw it. It must have been in the early 1960s, and it was Lucy had a sand bucket, and she was filling it with sand and putting rows of sand bucket shaped sand piles in a row, and she did a whole row while Charlie Brown just looked on quizzically, and then she stomped them all. And she turned to Charlie Brown and said, "I'm torn between the desire to create and the desire to destroy." And I went, that's going to be my motto.
You know, he was amazing because it's, you know, such a sweet strip and so mainstream. But boy, when he started out, that was radical stuff, you know?
Yes, it was, yeah. Loneliness and alienation and
unlike anything else on the comic page.
Unbelievable. I love those strips. And I got to meet Charles Schultz once.
Mm-hmm.
I was working on The Simpsons, and I heard that he was having lunch across town, and if I hurried, I'd catch up with him, and I did. I left work and I raced across town, and there he was holding court at this big table at a cafe in Venice, and I was a little hesitant because I have two characters in Life in Hell named Akbar and Jeff, and they are wearing Charlie Brown's shirt. They have the same shirt. And I thought, I don't know, you know. First of all, I'm ripping Charles Schultz off, and also, I always say those characters, Akbar and Jeff, they're either brothers or lovers or both. Whatever offends you the most. That's what and I thought, you know, I understood that Charles Schultz was somewhat conservative in a lot of his views, but he was extremely gracious, and he had no problem with Akbar and Jeff. So there you go.
You know, I have a cartoonist friend who was at that luncheon.
But in Portland, Oregon, where I grew up, there were tons of them. There was Choo Choo Charlie, who was a train engineer. There was Mr. Duffy, Cartoon Circus. There was the Paul Bunyan Jr. show, which is basically a guy who's somewhat tall. But, and they all showed cartoons, and this one guy, whose real name was Bobby Adkins, but on his showbiz name was Addie Bobkins, and he showed Popeye cartoons, and they had how to draw Popeye contest, and I practiced drawing Popeye forever. Popeye is a really hard character to draw because his face makes no sense.
No. His body too.
In fact, I think about there are certain cartoonists who you just can't see how could they make that decision, right? Like, I think of Hank Ketchum, who does Dennis the Menace. I look at those Dennis the Menace cartoons, and I just go, how did he do that?
I think he's like one of the best inkers.
It's just unbelievable. Anyway, so I entered the Popeye contest and did not win. But now I can vaguely draw Popeye.
Too bad it's not a drawing to stand here. We could have a Popeye fight off. And Schultz was very proud of drawing Popeye, and he drew me a Popeye once.
Well, one of the great things about him, among many other things, is how generous and outgoing he was to other cartoonists, right? So, Calvin and Hobbes, and so many other scripts that he helped him out.
Oh my God, he would spend time. He had a friend, Mark Cohen, cartoonists would talk to him, and then he would set up meetings with Sparky, and Sparky would spend time with any cartoonist. The first time I met him, I didn't even do much yet. I showed him my Bad Baby book, and we went out to lunch together. He was just very open with his time with that. And I don't know how he did it, because the deadline for a daily comic strip is insane, but he was way ahead. He used to tease me. He would call me up in July, and I'd be working on, for a daily cartoonist, you have to be 6 weeks ahead. So in July, I would just be doing my August strips and just really close to finishing them. And in July, he'd call me and say, "Oh, Patrick, isn't it tough to come up with these Christmas jokes this time of year?" It'd be like 8 months ahead.
I did Life in Hell as a weekly comic strip, and it was always due on Friday for the following week to mail it out. And literally on Thursday, I'd go, oh no, I have another strip due. So in a way, daily, like you're always on the clock.
It's like having.
Like, what are you doing here?
It's like having a term paper that never ends. But I would drive to the FedEx place and overnight the strips that were due. And it was just the ride home from FedEx back to my house was my only moment of zen. Of like, I would take a breath and then go home and start working again.
I had the same experience. I would draw my strip at the last moment, and I would get it on the last deadline at FedEx at the airport at LAX, and they closed at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And so I would be racing across town with my strip with the ink still wet, and drop it off, and then go, made the deadline, right? And then finally, after doing this for years, the guy behind the counter says, you know, the plane doesn't really take off until after 8. So I went, oh no.
So then
then it was 8. Then it was 8 o'clock.
The greatest deadline story I ever heard was Mel Lazarus drew Mama. And one time the cartoonists had the National Cartoonist Society. And one time they had their meeting in Buffalo, New York, where they printed the Sunday comics, where they colored them and printed them. And he literally brought his Mama comic strip that was due that week to place that. So he skipped FedEx and actually flew and drew it there. Yeah.
You want to go to the next one?
So this, on Charles Schultz's 100th birthday, we asked the cartoonist to do a tribute to him, and this was the tribute I did of Earl looking at Snoopy. There'd be no Earl without Snoopy, that's for sure. And talking about
There, that's the book. That's
Yeah.
the book. Which, by the way, I highly recommend for many reasons. There's a lot of amazing Crazy Cat books out now, but that was one of the first really great ones. And one of the things that's amazing about that book is you found original Crazy Cat comic strips that were the original black and white strips had watercolor on them.
I tell
They
you,
were colored.
we did that strip in, I think, 1984, and I mean this book in 1984, and it was before the internet. So if we found any information, we were like, if we found a new sentence to add to the book, because on top of everything else, Herman was a recluse and didn't, kept everything private. So to find anything, and in the process, we did it with the Graham Gallery, which was the coolest gallery in New York City. They were showing comic strip art as real art before anybody. They would have George Herman shows and Little Nemo shows, and they also represented Edward Gorey, who we had a Crazy Cat show, and Edward Gorey came to the Crazy Cat show. You knew it was him because he had a giant mink coat and sneakers on. But yeah, we did. That book was a lot of fun to do. And actually, one of the hand-colored Sunday pages, a guy said he had one and he could mail it to us. And we were waiting for it. And then we lived in Hoboken at the time. And then the neighbor next door said, I have a package for you. It's been in our hallway for a month. An original Crazy Cat that was hand-colored.
So George Herman's house in Los Angeles came up for sale once.
Wow.
And I didn't go see it, but Gary Panter, another great cartoonist, went and saw it, and the realtor was saying, and this is a very auspicious house because it was owned by the creator of Felix the Cat.
How cool to live in that house, though.
Yeah.
And then Crumb, I mean, this is my tribute to Crumb, but then Bob Crumb, I mean, for me it was, it was Charles Schultz, and then in 1969 they had a Crazy Cat book came out. I never heard of Crazy Cat, and then it was Crazy Cat, and then probably the early 70s when I was in junior high, going to hippie stores, underground stores, and buying Crumb's comic books where you might not see it in Mutts, but I think it was definitely a major influence. I
discovered Zap Comics in the form of a thumbnail illustration in a pseudo hippie magazine called EYE, and there was this cover of Zap Comics #1. It's got an orange and black and white cover, and that just made my head explode. I
Yeah.
thought that was the most amazing thing. And then that other part, the thing is your
Tribute to,
homage to the
Big Brother
Cheap-
and the
Cheap-
Holding Company.
Cheap Thrills album cover.
Yeah, actually, I got a letter from the guitarist of Big Brother, and he sent me I sent him a signed print of it, and he sent me a DVD of the Big Brother and the Holding Company, which was a great band. Oh
You're a
my
great
God.
band, and that's a great album.
Yeah, one of the best. So before I did Mutts, I did magazine illustrations. And I was going to ask you, so was your first job Life in Hell, or did you do other things before Life in Hell?
Let me think. Yeah, well, I did little things. I self-published Life in Hell as a little Xerox comic book, and how do you do it when you don't have any money to publish yourself? You get a job at a Xerox store.
Smart move.
So, and my boss at the time, we sold copies for 3 cents. It was copies 3 cents each, no minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in tiny lettering underneath, 50 cents minimum purchase, right? And so people come in and go, 1 copy, and slam down three pennies, and I said, 50 cents, and they would get really mad, and I'd point to the small lettering, and the boss, when things got heated, the boss would run into the back room and watch through a one-way mirror. I think he enjoyed. So I thought I earned my illicit Xeroxing.
At this time, even before this, I did my first comic strip was for a local music paper called The Aquarian, based out of New Jersey. And I did a strip called The Shoobies, which was kind of Frank and Millie and Mutts before Frank and Millie and Mutts. And I was doing that for a while, and then I think I was getting paid $15 a strip. And I went in there and asked for a $5 raise and got rid of the strip.
Well, one of my first jobs creatively was working for a magazine called Wet, W-E-T, Wet Magazine, the magazine of gourmet bathing. And it was a hipster magazine, very sort of artsy oriented. And they called me in because I was working at the Los Angeles Reader as an editor and writer. And they basically had photos, and they would ask me to write copy, to make up fake articles to go with these photos.
That's great.
And by the way, so the editor and publisher of the magazine said, come on down to Venice, where I'll take you out to lunch. And as a starving artist, I went down there, and we talked, and then he said, okay, let's go to lunch. And he took me to a hot dog cart and said, anything you want. And then when I did this work, so then they were the first ones to publish Life in Hell they gave me a whole bunch of soap, of different kinds of gourmet soaps, and they said, do a cartoon about this. And so I had Binky the Rabbit review soaps, and I actually tried the soaps, and wrote down notes about them, and then realized this was really stupid, so it was a really angry strip about it. And then it came time to be paid, and they never paid me, and finally they said, okay, we can pay you in pottery.
Not soap?
No. And so I said, I can't pay the rent with pottery. And they said, okay, come on down to the office. This was on a Friday. Come on down on Monday, and we'll have your money for you. And I said, can I come down now? They go, no, come down on Monday. And I came down on Monday and knocked, and nobody answered the door. And then I lifted up the mail slot, and the office was cleaned out. And the editor-publisher had fled the country. So I never got paid. Anyway, isn't that a beautiful story? So what's this?
Well, you know, even before I was thinking that around this same time, you were talking about children TV shows. Do you remember the Uncle Floyd show?
No, that was not in my...
You know, Uncle Floyd was a local Jersey show, but then it actually started playing after Saturday Night Live. I think it did that for a couple of months. But the Uncle Floyd show was a really crazy children's show, and I did the artwork for his he did little skits, and I did the artwork for those skits. And he eventually had punk bands on, but Karen, my wife, and I, our punk band was the first. We convinced him to put punk bands on.
Wait a minute. Punk band? What? You're a punk?
Yeah.
Well, tell us your punk story.
Oh my God. So
what was the name of your band?
Steel Tips. And we played CBGBs, we played with the Ramones, we played with Blondie. It was a whole different time, but man, was it fun.
Well, if the cartooning doesn't work out.
Well, you know, that's funny. That's what I was thinking at the time. At the time, I was doing this, which is the Russell Baker column for the New York Times. So that was my day job, and then at night I was in a punk band, and you know, so we played CBGBs, and you'd play CBGBs, and you would literally get like $50 for the night, the whole band. And so actually, you know, this is funny with the Ramones. We were playing CBGBs and not getting paid anything. So we said, there was a long hair, you know, those big hair bands placed in New Jersey, and we asked if we could play there, and they said, we don't want punk in New Jersey. We said, but we'll play for you don't have to pay us, but we'll take 50% of the money that comes in. And the place was packed because people in New Jersey wanted to see punk rock. So we told that story to the Ramones, and they were like, because they were getting paid nothing at CBGBs, and they said, book us in New Jersey.
Wow.
So we played with the Ramones as a second bill to the Ramones in New Jersey. And they were really happy because they actually got paid. And going back to decisions on your life. So at that point, I was doing illustrations for the Russell Baker column, and I got paid okay for that. And so now we're with the Ramones backstage in New Jersey, and they were the big band. I mean, they weren't as big as they are now, but back in the punk rock days, you wanted to be the Ramones. So we got to talk to them, and oh my God, at that point in their lives, I think it was March, and they already did like 90 gigs. So they were playing all the time, and they were getting a stipend from their record company of, I think, $90 a week. And I was like, maybe I don't want to be a punk rocker.
We had the Ramones on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
They played themselves.
This gig sucks.
They played at Mr. Burns' birthday, and when they were done, Mr. Burns said, "Have the Rolling Stones killed."
Did they get paid to do the show for that?
In pottery.
Yeah, they got paid. They had a good time.
So I was doing this weekly column for the New York Times, and you know, New York Times was like famous for not having comics, but actually in this weekly column, I would do 3 panels and I would add words. I secretly felt like I was sneaking a comic strip into the New York Times. But as you can see in this comic, and this guy with a big nose and a mustache was a constant character. Like, even though I didn't have a comic strip, I had like characters that I used in my illustrations. And then we'll get to our friend Jay Kennedy. And then I wanted to be a comic strip artist since I was 5 years old. But boy, back in those years, comics in the newspapers were kind of at a dull point. You know, like the heyday kind of happened, and you know, God bless him. I mean, I love Gary Trudeau or whatever, but the more political stuff didn't appeal to me. And even though I wanted to be a comic strip artist, it just didn't seem that exciting. But then Calvin and Hobbes happened, and The Far Side happened, and more importantly, a friend of mine, Jay Kennedy, a friend of ours, who wrote the book on the Underground Comic Guide, got a job as editor at King Features, and I was like, oh my God, maybe there's a chance.
Well, you know, I met Jay Kennedy because he called me up, and he didn't care about my stuff, but he was a huge fan of Linda Berry, the cartoonist, great cartoonist, brilliant cartoonist, basically one of the main reasons why I'm a cartoonist. We met in college, and anyway, she had these little self-published comic zines, and Jay called me up and asked if I had any of them, and I said yes. He goes, I would like to buy them from you. And I said, okay, how much? And he said, well, it says according to the Underground Comics price guide, they're only $1 each, and I'll give you $2 for them. I said, you wrote the price guide. Jay was a great guy and a huge promoter of comics. Amazing.
And you know what? I mean, this is an amazing. I never told King Features this, but so when I heard he was the editor, I said, now I think it's finally time for me to try to do a daily comic strip. So we went out to lunch and I was talking to him. And at that point, I was a fairly successful illustrator making a decent living. And the first thing he asked me was like, are you sure you want to do this? And I really didn't understand what he was getting at, but as soon as I did it, I understood what he was getting at. But he was fairly nice enough to like warn me that it's not what I think, but man, I just had stars in my eyes. Until I literally got the job, I never thought about I mean, this is probably a blessing, but I never thought about the reality that it was every day and it never stopped. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but it didn't hit me until I started doing it. It was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna get a break.
You know, I met Robert Crumb once, and he said, I tried to do a weekly comic strip once, and he said, well, I couldn't do it. What a rut. And I was only doing it once a week, and now I look at you and I go, what a rut.
It is crazy. It's a crazy way to make art. But there's something nice about it too. There's some like meditative state you get in. And you have to trust the universe that you get ideas. Which is a good segue into ideas. So Earl says, do you have any ideas for today's comic? No, but I'm sure I'll come up with something by the third panel. Boy, that got here fast.
Wow. Yeah, hey, where did the names come from? Earl and Mooch and...
You know, I had the hardest time. I have notebooks just filled with names. I had a really hard time naming the characters. And actually, Earl, Sparky, Charles Schultz named. I was working on it, and I told him I was having tough times thinking of names. And he said, why don't you name him after your own dog? And I thought, this guy might know what he's talking about.
Wow.
So he named Earl. I had a Jack Russell named Earl. And Jack, my dog, was the inspiration for the strip for sure. And Mooch, my mom used to call, we had cats growing up. I didn't have a dog until Earl, who inspired the strip. But when cats like headbutt you on the face, my mom would call that a mooch. I thought that was a good name.
How many dogs and cats did you have growing up?
I just had cats. We didn't have it. My first dog was Earl when I was in my 30s, right before the strip, and he inspired me to do a strip about dogs.
You want to know what my pets were?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My first dog was a beagle named Rover, and Rover lived in the garage. And I would get up early. I was very tiny. I was maybe 3 or 4, and I would go into the garage, and my favorite thing was to walk Rover around by holding up his hind legs and walking him around like a wheelbarrow. And my older brother Mark, basically the basis of Bart, came out one time and caught me, and he said, if you keep doing that, you're gonna kill that dog. And the thing is, I couldn't stop.
I'm not gonna let you dog sit my dog.
And then Rover was followed by Stubby, who was a Boston Terrier, who the whole family is convinced he never recognized us. He was angry at us the whole time.
Isn't that funny? My last dog, after Earl, I got another Jack Russell Amelie, and never met us at the door. We'd come home and be sitting on the couch, like, oh, you guys again? You know?
Stubby, we went on a road trip once, and we let Stubby out by the side of the road to relieve himself, and he just ran. Ran. Thank God he just ran down the highway in the direction we were going, so we were able to catch him. But no, Stubby was not a good dog. Well, we loved him anyway. By the way, there's a theme for today's panel discussion. It's the love of animals, right?
We're going to get to that.
And then I got to tell you about my cats. I had 3 cats, and you met one of them. I had 3 cats, Frosty, Mueller, and Junior. And Frosty was a gray tabby, got out of shelter, and this cat he just became enormous. He just was the fattest cat, and we didn't overfeed him. but he just became really fat. And it turned out that all these people in the neighborhood thought he was their cat, because he would go in the cat door and eat their food. And the other two cats were regularly normal cats. But anyway, Frosty was the funny. People would see him and they just laugh. I was contacted by the Purina cat chow company, and they had a cat calendar, a celebrity cat calendar, and they said, "Do you have any cats?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Will you be in the calendar? We'll send over a photographer." And I said, "Great." And so I knew that they wouldn't like Frosty because he was so big. It's not a good advertisement for Purina cat chow. And so I hid the other two cats. And so when the photographer came over with consultants from the Purina company, they looked at the cat and they went off and had a huddle. And they said, "Oh, okay." And then they set it up so he was posed standing on the counter, and they'd taken a framed drawing of Bart Simpson, and they tried to hide his body behind the photo.
There's always airbrushing.
So then they put out the calendar, and you could see one beautiful photograph of a great cat owned by some big famous person after another, and each owner got to write a paragraph about their cat. The paragraph that I turned in was, "We try to keep Frosty on a diet, but it's really hard to control him when he sleeps inside the Purina cat chow bag." They wouldn't print that. But anyway, you look through this cat calendar, and you get to my cat, and everybody laughs. So that went on, for a while, and I felt very gratified, because you know your cat should be in a cat calendar, right? Everybody's cat, right? Okay, so months went by, and I got called by an advertising agency, and they said, "We saw your cat in the cat calendar. We'd like to use your cat as a model." And I said, "Oh my gosh, wow, this is great." And they said, "Well, hang on. We're advertising a diet cat food. We want your cat to be the before photo."
Did you do it?
I did it. Of course. My cat's famous. And then later, you visited, and my cat Mueller. I told you about my cat Mueller and how we were at the beach in LA, and this cat is the only cat I've ever seen that actually liked to walk on the beach. But most of the time, she just sat at the very edge of the backyard and just looked at the ocean and just sat. And then you did a drawing of Erlenmooch and Mueller, and it's framed in my house. It's so great. So if you guys have a cat, just get Patrick McDonnell to come over.
At the book signing, I'll give you a cat.
Wow.
This one's probably too long to read, but I'll read it real quick. So it's a hot day in August, and Earl's laying on the sidewalk, and Mooch says, "Earl, you'll melt in this hot sun." Earl says, "I like it. Not me, I'm finding a cool spot." And then Earl realizes, phew, for once that cat was right. He walks away. So that's why I had to draw this one. Hey, there's my version of Popeye.
There you go. Close.
And he is, yeah, you're absolutely correct. What a strange design of a character.
Well, but E.C. Segar, the creator of Popeye, unbelievable, unbelievable, and the fact that it could transcend its comic strip form, which was brilliant, into those Fleischer cartoons is unbelievable. Yeah. Those are so great.
One of the few examples of a comic strip being a great animated thing. The Simpsons. Well, I guess Simpsons was never a comic strip, though. You just
we went through we tried.
Yeah, I remember.
We tried.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, I wanted to give a shout out also to Bud Sagendorf, who took over for E.C. Segar when he died. And there's some amazing early Popeye comic books with little maps in them and really amazing adventures. I love him.
And if you haven't read Seagar, I mean, that now, what's great about today is you can get everyone's comic from the first year to the last year. But I highly recommend picking up Seagar reprints. They're still funny today. It's amazing what he got away with back then. Anyway, so the Guard Dog books is the latest book that I'll be signing after this talk. And, you know, like Popeye, I mean, what was great about Seagar's Popeye was not only did he tell funny jokes, but he told stories. And he was able not only to keep the story going, but every daily also had a joke. And that's like to keep a story going and have a joke at the same time was a work of genius. So with Guard Dog, I had this character, Guard Dog, early on, like maybe the second year of Mutts. And I was thinking that Earl and Mooch needed a villain. So I said, I'm gonna draw a tough dog for them to have to deal with. And I did all the cliches. I gave him, you know, stout little body, and I put angry teeth on him, and then I put a spiked collar on him, but then I put a chain on him, and when I put the chain, I said, oh my God, this guy's not a villain, this guy's a tragic character. So he became, you know, the character in the strip to get some empathy, maybe inspire someone to unchain their dog in the backyard. And I did.
Can I ask, when did you become aware of how important this character was to your audience?
You know, right away, people really related to him. And also, unfortunately, right away, a lot of people immediately said, we got a free guard dog, you got a free guard dog. And I had two promises. Like, one was that Earl and Mooch go to a place called the Fatty Snacks Deli. And I promised someday that Fatty Snacks would go vegan, and he did a few years ago. And the other promise was that I would let the guard dog go free. And but boy, it took almost like 28 years before.
28 years?
Yeah, you know.
You sadist.
Yeah, I felt it, you know. But I'm friendly, obviously, with a lot of animal rights groups, and they thought that he needed to do his job to keep that story.
What a beautiful ending to the story.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. And finally, I said it was time. And another reason it took a long time, and I mentioned this in the book. The book's not only the story itself, but it's also a little background on Guard Dog. And you know, Fox Studios bought Mutts as a movie, and I fought for a year with my lawyer to get the right to write the script, and they finally said okay. And the script was Guard Dog going free. I thought that would be a perfect place to have Guard Dog go free, a feature-length film. And of course, like my version of Hollywood, is things just kept on going and going and going. And then finally, when they approved the script and they were doing the art and it looked like things were gonna happen, Disney bought Fox and everything went out the window. So then I realized, and that took 10 years. So that was like 10 years of not freeing Guard Dog, because I said I gotta save it for the movie. So finally I was free to do the Guard Dog story, and it was a real pleasure to do. And it was really exciting because, you know, here's a page from the book. But, you know, like Little Orphan Annie and Dick Tracy, you know, back before TV, you know, people really read the comics in those. There were so many adventure comics like Dick Tracy and Little Orphan Annie, and every day you would do these stories that lasted months. So the Guard Dog story lasted 7 weeks, and it was really, in this day and age with such short attention spans, for people to have to wait 24 hours to read 3 more panels of the story was a really fun way to tell a story, and people really got attached to it. So
one of the things I like about comic strips in daily comic strips in the newspaper is, to me, it's like it's a little window of hand drawing that is not edited. At least there's no indication that it's edited. There may be an editor involved, but you think that it's the creative output of a singular artist. Unlike all the lines of gray type that you see, you don't know what is original. You know that generally the reporter didn't write the headline, and so on and so forth. And it's like, again, like little windows. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love your stuff too, is because there is a window that is its own kind of emotion. And the rest of the newspaper is filled with really grim stuff. Yeah. And then there's this sweetness and
this
optimism.
This little oasis. And you know, it's true. I mean, they do leave you alone. I don't think I've been edited on anything for the whole 30 years. Mm-hmm. To, you know, don't do that or don't do this. And I've done some, you know, animal rights issues that are pretty strong, and no one's ever told me not to do And so that's the guard dog story.
Okay. This book, well, I don't need to stand up and show it because you can see it on the screen, but this book, The Art of Nothing, 25 Years of Mutts and the Art of Patrick McDonnell. Great book, great book. This is sort of, this is it. This is the one you gotta get. You gotta get them all. By the way, I'm such a fan that I got the Mutts bookends, the little bookends, and I, you know, because man, merchandise is where it at. Come on.
Well, this was done by Charlie Kochman, my editor, and you know, all editors say, "Oh, you can do whatever you want," but that's never true. But Charlie actually holds on to that promise. So this book was really a lot of fun to do, and it's exactly how I wanted it to be. And one of the reasons it was fun, Charlie and I thought maybe we could get Linda Barry to interview me, and she could be part of. She could do an introduction. But Linda is such a genius. She thought about it, and then she said, "Well, I don't want to do an interview. I want to be pen pals with Patrick for like 2 months." And then she was going to do something with the letters that we wrote back and forth to each other. This is an example of one of her letters where she drew Denslow's Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz. And boy, look at her handwriting. She's like, I don't know, I mean, my letters look like crap. But so think of that. I had like 2 months of fun, like a little kid waiting at the mailbox to see if Linda wrote me back. And then she put them together like this. That appears in the book. She did like a collage of, it's funny, she didn't use any of her letters. She just did a collage of my letters to, and it's funny, I'm actually, that little drawing of Doozy and Guard Dog, in one of her letters, you know, Linda mentioned Guard Dog, and when she was a kid, that there was a little dog that was chained in her neighborhood that she used to feed all the time. She would climb the fence, like the character in my strip, so I thought that was touching. But yeah, she's special.
Linda is amazing. You check out her books as well. She's got a ton of them, and she is obsessed with teaching the art of cartooning, and she teaches at the University of Wisconsin. And I could not wish a better young life would than move to Wisconsin and take her art class, because she's absolutely incredible.
And then in Mutts, I do these title panels of art that inspires me, or I thought, you know, would say a statement about the actual comic strip.
So those are the first panels of your Sunday strips.
Yeah. They're called throwaway panels because half the newspapers don't print them. And boy, I spend way too much time on these. That was one of the reasons I never left the house.
Well, I like it because it's your version of what we do on The Simpsons, which is the couch gag, which it doesn't relate to the rest of the show, and we break all the rules, and yeah, that's amazing.
And I figured I'd show one of these for you because Matt and I are big Frank Zappa fans, and so this is the Reuben and the Jets album. And I tell you, not only a Frank Zappa fan, I'm guessing you too, but I was a Cal Schenkel fan. That's the artist for Frank Zappa's covers. And honestly, if truth be told, I think the way Cal Schenkel drew Frank Zappa, particularly for this album cover, was a major influence. But I think where Ozzy comes from, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I love that album cover just like blew my mind when I saw it.
That was amazing, and it's not clear. So Reuben and the Jets was a fake band that Frank Zappa made up, and
to do 1950s doo-wop.
1950s doo-wop, yeah, and it's a great record.
Yeah. And there's another Frank Zappa, Chunga's Revenge.
So do you, obviously you listen to music while you draw, right?
Yeah.
What do you listen to?
You know, I can't listen to music with words.
Okay.
So I listen mostly classical and jazz, and some Brazilian stuff. But,
yeah, I can't listen to music with words either when I'm writing, or when I'm when I'm writing. Inking is a little different. So
yeah. You didn't think of, but it's funny. I mean, for how much I love punk rock, and I can listen to that, but not when I work. I guess because it's funny. I have a weird, you know, my heroes growing up were Charles Schultz and Frank Zappa, and that's about as far away as you can get. And I think because of Mutts, when I draw quieter music. But I've also been painting lately. When I paint, then I can listen to the rock stuff and the Frank Zappa stuff.
Well, one of the amazing things about Zappa was that he had one foot in 50s doo-wop and blues, Howlin' Wolf and Johnny Guitar Watson and all the rest of those great guys, and also Stravinsky, Igor Stravinsky, classical music, and Edgar Varese, and Bartok and Schoenberg, and all the rest of those highfalutin classical guys. And on the inside cover of his very first album, Freak Out, he listed all the people that had influenced him, and I made it a goal of mine to track down all of those things and listen to them. It was a little harder back in the 60s.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend that too.
Yeah.
He was such a fun guy to listen to because his music went all over the place, but his influences were also completely high and low.
Yeah.
And that's been a
Yeah, if we lived in the same town, we would have hung out together. 'Cause my friends and I had a band when we were growing up, and I remember in high school, like, to go into the classical record store and ask for Varese, they'd look at you and like you're like a 14-year-old long-haired kid and you're asking for Varese.
Well, I listened to music when I was a kid on what was called a rocket radio. It was a little plastic rocket with a little antenna that came out of the top of the rocket. In fact, that's where Bender's antenna comes from. It's that rocket radio, and an alligator clip was sort of the antenna, attached to a cable, and then there was one earplug, and attached to a wire. And I remember mostly listening to Top 40 radio, and somehow I accidentally got onto a classical station, and they were playing the craziest piano music I had ever heard. Rhythmically, I just never heard anything like it. And at the end, it turned out to be the very first recording of Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring for two pianos, or for actually one piano, four hands. And that changed my life as well. That was amazing. And again, it turns out Frank Zappa loved that as well.
And I also did a Captain Beefheart. And then now we're going to talk about the animal-friendly part.
Oh, by the way, how are we doing on time?
Yeah.
How many?
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Let's do this real quick, and then we should probably take questions. So, all right, real quick. I don't even know what's left.
For your favorite things you guys reference, do you have like not just the overall, but do you have one specific one that always stuck with you and always caught your? When you think of that, you think of this strip kind of thing.
You mean my favorite Mutts strip or another strip?
Both, sure, both. So, you mentioned Calvin Hobbes, you mentioned Peanuts. Like, is there one that stuck out in particular other than the overall thing?
For Peanuts, and this kind of makes sense, the guy who draws Mutts, but I love the series where Linus was patting birds on the head. This is early 60s that he would stop and just pat birds on the head. And as a little kid, I tried to do that. It's impossible to pat a bird on the head. And of course, his sister Lucy's like, "What are you doing? You're making me the laughing stock of the neighborhood." But I just thought that was.
I liked a series of strips with Snoopy where somehow his ears turned into like helicopter blades and he could fly around like a helicopter. That was great. Okay, well, you're right in the front.
For both of you gentlemen, I don't know how much time you spend online, but I'm curious if there are any webcomic creators that you like their work. That there's, for me personally, like Poorly Drawn Lines, I can see a lot of his influence in like the work that you guys have done. So I'm just curious if your feelings on webcomics and anyone that you like.
Well, I love the idea of webcomics, and I glance at them in a casual way, but I'm old. I'm still looking at print stuff. Yeah, but I'm amazed that there's amazing stuff out there, and Poorly Drawn Lines. Mm-hmm. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same. I still dip a pen into a bottle of ink, so I don't spend that much time on the internet. But I just did an intro for a comic called The Poet, which is a very zen comic, so I can recommend The Poet.
I think are we out of time? Okay, let's do the final question, and then they'll kick us out.
Yeah, hi. My name is Sophia O, and I'm just really curious about you because you met your journey from writing and comics to animation. Yeah, because actual like dream is to then like work on your show like Futurama. Like I want to be like an animator, storyboarders, whatever, to work on your show, and I just really want to like hear about your journey from like how I love like yours, like your journey on Mutts, like all these inspirations, and also like so I just want to hear like your actual like journey, I guess.
Well, that is a great question, and could we make this panel go on for another 3 hours? I'm sorry, that is such a huge question. I would just say, this is the advice that Frank Zappa did. He goes, the world is full of projects that are unfinished. Don't let your unfinished project just sit in the drawer. Finish it. Even if you lose faith in it or whatever, at least you have a finished thing. So that's what I try to do. I have a lot of unfinished projects of my own, but when my career started turning around is when I actually finished stuff. So that would be my advice.
Did you ever think what you would, I mean, think of what you have accomplished. That's like amazing.
I never thought it would work out this way. Somehow I had this idea that I would work in a tire warehouse and that I would do drawings on the walls during lunch break at the loading dock. Yeah, so
Still can.
this is a dream.
Still can.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And with follow your dreams, like I wanted to be a cartoonist since I was 5. You know, I did a book with Jane Goodall about her early life, and she just knew at the age of 5 that she wanted to help animals and go to Africa, and she made it come true. So whatever your dream is, just give it a shot. You only get one try here in life, so give it a try.
Thank you.